I'll just take my snacks next week.
There you go. Okay, here we are. We live?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the Senate Transportation Committee, and our first guest this morning from the Agency of Transportation. We're continuing our discussion about the budget overview and policies of the agency. And Jesse Devlin, Highway Safety and Design Program Manager, is with us this morning. Welcome to our committee. Tell us what you'd like to do today.
Thank you, and it's great to be here. It's good to see everyone again. And again, I apologize for having to be remote today.
We apologize for having you at 8:30.
No, I'm up, so it's not a worry there. But I wish I could be there. It's been a few years, and it would have been good to meet in person. So I'm going to share my screen. It looks like Mike has given me the ability. Can the committee see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, so for the record, my name is Jesse Devlin. I am the program manager for the Highway Safety and Design section at VTrans. As a refresher, I've been with the agency about 20 years, 10 of which have been in this role. Really, all of my time with the agency has been as an engineer or project manager or program manager on roadway and intersection type projects. So as program manager, I oversee 3 primary units or programs. These include roadway design, pavement design, and traffic and safety. And these 3 groups really differ in terms of the types of projects that they deliver. So today, what I'm hoping to do, and you've seen similar presentations, so I'm happy that you all have familiarity with the programs and what we do. But I'd like to just kind of run through each of the 3 programs, identifying the types of projects that are worked on, highlight some sample projects, dive into a little bit of what the budget is actually buying, and also talk through the 10G reports. So as roadway was first on the docket, I figured we would start there. So our roadway design group, the primary role of our team is to develop and deliver plan, specification, and estimates for a really wide range of project scopes. We're not the group that necessarily defines what becomes a project, and we're not the group that constructs it. We're everything between. We take it from concept to the point where it is advertised for construction. So the projects contained within the roadway program, it's really kind of a catch-all. It deals with projects that address safety, mobility, as well as asset condition, all of which directly contribute to meeting our mission of providing for the safe and efficient movement of people and goods. So our roadway design group consists of 10 team members. We have project managers, engineers, and technicians. In addition to the challenging task of actually designing projects, the teams also have a great deal of responsibility in other areas, such as fiscal responsibility, managing program, really project budgets, customer service. Our teams are the point of contact throughout the life of a project and a project's development. Quality, our team ensures that the design meets the need of the project, the needs of the community, and also schedule in terms of ensuring that projects are delivered according to when we say they are. So in 2022, our roadway program advertised 10 projects for construction, all of which were advertised within the 30-day performance goal, our snapshot date. And this is an important performance goal for us because it does help to maintain consistency and a level of expectation with the communities, with the towns in terms of when projects will be delivered.
Jesse, let me ask you a question. We were talking the other day, when there's a project the size of the North Road Drawbridge, for example, when a contractor bids on that, it's maybe 3 years. How, number one, how do they determine it's going to be 3 years? I mean, a lot of study goes into it, I'm sure. And then number two, if they miss that deadline by 6 months or 3 months, what do? They ask for an extension or their dock payment? Or it's such a huge project when you're talking about that size project. I don't know how they can even come up with a price, but that's beyond my ability to do that. But just curious about that.
Yeah, certainly challenging. So to address your first part in terms of how the contract duration, construction duration is developed, throughout design, the team really works with our construction staff to talk through the project elements, the complexities, the risks, to develop a basic construction timeline that we believe would be reasonable for a project. And this is conveyed within the contract as the completion date. And there may be instances where there's also interim dates where specific phases of work may need to be completed by a date. So those are really vetted through our construction team, who have, vast experience with a lot of different project types. When we're actually in the field and there may be overruns in terms of time, there are certain pieces like weather where additional days would be allowed. But if, there's other instances where if the schedule is just not progressing as intended, there may be liquidated damages where there is a financial component for missing those completion dates. And that kind of ties into the slide I have here too, because one of the main categories within the roadway program is actually our reconstruction projects. And these types of projects are really complete overhauls of the roadway. We're really digging down, replacing all of the select materials below the road. We're dealing with drainage and expansion. And these are projects that are multi-year jobs and complex. The photos on the screen kind of demonstrate this. On the left, we have a photo of some trench work. This was actually on Waterbury Main Street, and you can see the challenges in terms of working close to traffic, pedestrians, and businesses. The photo in the middle is actually construction of a utility, buried subsurface utilities on a reconstruction job. And I like this photo because it's a good example of the work that goes into some of these projects that is never seen when it's all done. You can't see the level of complexity, both from design.
It's like the Middlebury tunnel, the same thing, that project. And my other questions always bug me is when contractors come in and they give us, say on a $95 million project, someone comes in at 10 million less than the other person. Do you look at that and say, what did they miss? Or, because when you're bidding on a job that size, I'm not qualified to do construction bidding, but I just wonder, when there's, say, a $10 million spread, what do you do? Do you say, wait a minute here, something is missing, or you go over it again, or you just give it to the low bidder?
So with every project, we do perform a bid analysis. So we are looking closely at the manner in which contractors bid on specific items. And if there is an item that may be maybe raise a question, we're able to reach out to contractors and ask about that before there's any sort of acceptance of a bid. It wouldn't allow a contractor to change their bid, but it would provide that justification and at least outreach if there are questions.
Because like I said, it's always amazed me when those size bids, how they come up. There's a lot of study and those go into there because they got to subcontract a lot of that work out to other people. So they got to get prices ahead of time, I suspect.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing to me. I just can't think in those numbers how they do that for a project, because like I said, I've looked at the Middlebury underpass and I've looked at the North Shore Bridge. And we're talking serious hundreds of $1 million or whatever. And how you come close, it's amazing to me, but I'm sure they're much more qualified to do that job than I ever dreamed of. But it's
and that's what's challenging with large projects as well is, especially linear jobs, even small changes in unit prices for large projects. By unit prices, I mean a price associated with a specific element or item on a project. Small changes between an estimate and what's bid on large jobs can really have a major impact on overall cost. So it is
large jobs they're out of state contractors. They have to provide housing for their help. Because I know on the bridge in North Hero, they were working nights and they were working weekends, so they gotta provide housing for them or somewhere, because it's not local folks, that those contractors are usually out of state. They're that big, I guess.
Great.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for the committee at this point? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so roadway reconstruction is one of the primary categories of project types within the roadway program. Some asset level projects include culvert replacement or rehabilitation. As you're all aware, there are a lot of smaller culverts beneath our roads. A lot of them were built in the same era and are aging at the same rate and at the same time. And, this has been a major focus for us to really address those higher risk locations, identify and address. And the photos on the screen here just kind of demonstrate some of the type of work that we would perform with this. On the left, this is actually an ultraviolet cured in place liner. And that essentially means that we are forming a new pipe to the inside of a failing or failed culvert. The photo on the right is more of a traditional replacement where a small culvert is being replaced by a precast box culvert.
Jesse,
Go ahead.
is it the standard that any culvert replaced is replaced with what I call a live bottom, like culvert that has it's more natural stream flow? Is that the default where it can be done?
Yes. So with regards to replacements and box culverts, we go through, the formal permitting process, and locations that would require fish passage or aquatic organism passage, we're looking to accommodate that with, a buried invert like you were describing that would retain material through the bottom of the culvert. With that said, the photo on the left, like a rehabilitation, that does not offer that same level of aquatic organism passage. That's more of a rehabilitation.
Sure.
And it's only really applicable at certain locations, but it's a tool in our toolbox.
Just was confirming when you're doing a replacement, you replace it with a culvert that's not perched, that the exit water isn't splashing down and causing problems, and that there's fish passage.
Correct.
Thanks.
The final category I'll talk through is slope or ledge stabilization projects. So these are not our glamorous projects like a roadway reconstruction, but they are important. These are the projects that identify risk locations where material is either at risk of falling into a roadway, or there's an embankment that is potentially compromising a traveled way. So the photos on this screen do a good job to show kind of the magnitude of this type of work. It's not just removing rock, it's complex in many situations, but it's an important category of job that we have within this program. So to highlight a sample project from this past fiscal year, I'll summarize a situation we had on Route 125 in Addison. In October of 21, we had some larger rainstorm events, and that, coupled with some sensitive soils and higher groundwater, contributed to the failure of about 200 feet of Route 125 in Addison. So as you can see from the photo here, the road is not passable. VTrans immediately signed a detour and closed this section of Route 125.
Wasn't a car there?
There was not. There was not anything at the time of failure, which is good.
Where's Route 125?
So immediately the team, so this was essentially more of an unplanned project. The team assessed the geotechnical requirements. It was a complex site, and really worked to design a treatment or fix here that would help to dewater the slope and stabilize it. The cost of this project was about 1.3 million. Construction, the advertisement of this project occurred in January of 22. Construction began in March, and it was opened back to traffic in June. So this was a good example of a project that was on the unplanned side. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. But I have a question. We've been presented multiple times that we systematically score and rate our bridges as certain 5 conditions or types. Do we have a similar method of tracking and identifying the steep slopes where our roads are on, that you have a prioritization list, or there are trouble spots, things that are on our radar, so to speak, with any type of systematic cataloging?
Yes. So on the ledge side, I will say there's a high, basically a prioritized rockfall hazard index that helps to identify the riskiest sites in terms of ledge. Regarding slopes, it's a little bit more on the development side. We rely on our maintenance teams who are out, driving these roads and maintaining these roads consistently to provide feedback in terms of areas where they may be seeing some increased erosion or river movement, those types of elements. But I'll also note that we have, I believe it's just about ready for kind of rollout, a resiliency tool that helps to kind of model these higher risk locations for slope. That's going to really help in terms of prioritizing and programming projects before they reach this level. And I will say, failures of this magnitude are not common. So I think we're doing a fair job of getting ahead of those types of situations, but they do occur. So the photos I have on the screen now are just a few more shots from this project indicating the failed slope, the roadway under construction, and then the final condition on the right. So that's a general summary of the types of projects that are included within this program. So on tab 5D is the 2024 roadway program. We're proposing an appropriation of $53.85 million. So this is an increase of about $2.5 million compared to the 23 roadway program. This includes work on 3 primary project phases. We have preliminary engineering, which is effectively the design activities of the project. We have right-of-way, which includes the acquisition of any rights or easements that are needed in order to construct the project. And then we actually have the physical construction of the projects. So this budget will fund construction on 25 projects and will fund the preliminary engineering or right-of-way acquisition on an additional 54 projects. So breaking that down into the categories that I ran through previously, we'll have 37 projects of kind of those standard roadway or intersection improvement projects, 5 with FY24 construction funding, 20 small culvert rehab or replacements, 11 with construction funding in FY24, 15 ledge removal or slope stabilization projects, 7 with FY24 construction funding. And then there's also 7 projects that are in that miscellaneous category, which includes some scoping efforts along with some stormwater flow restoration type projects.
Well, Jesse, what about right-of-way acquisition? If you come across, I know we don't like the word, I don't like the word eminent domain, but what happens if someone wants to hold you up? You have to go through the court proceedings, or we haven't heard a lot of that. I'm glad we haven't. Everybody comes and care about it. But I'm sure you run across property owners that say, no, we don't want you to infringe on our land. Is that what happens then?
Yep, absolutely. So the right-of-way process in general consists of, once a design is formulated for a project, our right-of-way team will basically draft right-of-way plans and titles. And that serves to identify the rights and the types of rights that are needed in order to construct the project. Once we have that information of value, either through a simplified valuation or an appraisal is made for each individual property. Once that value is in hand, we have negotiators that go out and work to try to reach agreement with the property owners. If agreement cannot be made, we would initiate a necessity process, which would essentially go through the courts and allow the agency to demonstrate that the project is needed. And once it goes through that process, there would still be compensation and a conveyance of property, but it would allow us to progress with construction.
Will it hold up the project, or can it move forward, or does it hold it up through the court proceeding like we did on the Double Diamond in Colchester or Winooski?
Yep.
Held up for years.
We need to get through that necessity process in order to advance to construction. And, like you're alluding to, there is time associated with that. So if there is a scenario where we can reach agreement with property owners, that's obviously preferred, because it in the long run is a faster process to get to construction.
Yes.
How common is the necessity process of projects?
It's not. I'd be hard pressed to give you a percentage, but I'd say it's on the rarer side. We're not preparing for these consistently. They're more common on the larger linear projects, those reconstructions. So, for example, we're about to submit a necessity petition at the court for the Pittsford Brandon Segment 4 project, which is a roadway reconstruction project. Lots of property owners on it. And those types of situations just are more challenging to, gain all of those agreements through negotiation.
8 years on South Burlington City Council, we never had to go through eminent domain because it's so expensive that it usually justifies paying a premium to the landowners that they usually get what they want above market. Nice little check.
It was very common years ago. Eminent domain was used a lot by the state when I was in the early days here. I never liked that. I always hoped there could be some resolution, but eminent domain was a popular item when they built the interstate, a lot of the projects. And you never win, because it holds you up for years. They can hold up, like I said, that one project. So it's nice to hear that they can work out these things without, I haven't heard the word eminent domain used in a long time, but
Lawyers.
yeah, that's right. The lawyers win because they spend years holding up these projects.
And to that point, Senator Chittenden, our negotiation team does have flexibility to negotiate, right? There is wiggle room in terms of those conversations, but with federal dollars too, we need to make sure that it is within reason as well. So there is that balance.
Thank you.
So to highlight a project in FY24, I just noted the intersection reconstruction of US Route 2 and Industrial Ave. So this project is a project that will improve safety and mobility for all users, and it will also include roadway widening, new drainage, sidewalks, bus pull-off, as well as utility relocation. The estimated cost for this project is about $7.5 million. Construction began.
Oh, what district is it?
It's long overdue. It's a great project. It looks great.
It is coming along well. So construction began in spring of 21 and is anticipated to be completed in fall.
I got it through for you guys.
It's a good idea.
Yes.
I took care of you.
So I know in past years, we've kind of run through the 10G reports, and I'll do the same this year. 10G1 is on the screen now, and this is essentially projects that have been added since the FY23 project. You'll see a mix of culvert and slope projects, a lot of asset-driven projects on this list. The 10G2 report compiles projects that have increased in cost by $8 million or by more than 100%. So you'll see a few projects on here. The first two are in that roadway widening reconstruction category. This past year, really 15 months since the last budget was presented, we've seen some price increases with some of our more complex projects. And this is realized with some of the estimates that we're seeing, especially in roadway and also in paving, which we'll get into a little bit more. But past year was challenging, I think, from a contractor perspective in terms of what we've seen with labor shortages, trucker shortages. We saw some significant supply chain issues, and inflation in general has really contributed to some higher costs.
That doesn't surprise me. Everything we talk about in construction or paving, it's just the prices have gone right through the ceiling. And I don't see, like I said yesterday, I don't see it coming down either. Once they're up there, they're there to stay.
Has the Champlain Parkway started?
Yes. Champlain
Champlain Parkway is under construction. I believe Joel Perigo from Municipal Assistance will be coming in and talking with you. It's in the roadway program, but it is municipally managed, and he'd be able to provide the details. But you'll see that on this list, and this is actually comprising the 2 contracts that will be needed for the job. But the first contract that's out there now under construction did come in significantly over the estimated cost, which has driven the overall price up.
Imagine what that project, when it was designed or going to be built 20 years ago, what it would cost versus today's cost. It must be like triple.
And we haven't seen, over the last 2 months, a lot of larger projects advertised. So I'm not exactly sure the immediate trend, but we have seen some smaller projects come in on the asset side with regards to culvert or slope projects. And we've actually been receiving some pretty good pricing and increased competition as well. So that was encouraging to see with
Well, that's good news.
that scale of project. Yeah.
30 years, multiple quote processes.
That's how when they announced it this year or what last year that it started up, or they just started up again. I mean, the court process started up again, or it did, but they're moving forward.
They got it to,
Okay.
they just split a piece off of it so they could keep moving things forward. But
And there's still a bit of a downtown.
the train area, yeah. Maybe we should get a report on that.
Yeah, I like your update on that,
Yeah. Sounds like we're gonna talk about it a little bit later today. Is that what you said, Jesse, with that project, the Champlain Parkway? We're gonna hear a little bit more about that today.
So Joel Perigo, I'm not sure if he's on your agenda for today, but he is
Okay.
the program manager for municipal assistance.
Yeah.
And he'd be able to answer any more detailed questions about kind of where it's been and where it's going.
Thank you.
I told my contacts to call me if it's stalling.
So the last slide within roadway is the 10G3 report, and this includes projects that are no longer funded within FY24. Essentially, it's listing the projects that were completed. There is a footnote on this. There are 2 projects listed in the white book that construction has not actually been completed, but will be undertaken under a different project number.
Elmore, they're just,
Oh,
Okay,
what? How about Walden?
no, James,
James?
I don't have anything on there. Poor Russ, kick them,
I feel bad for you.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
There's a box of tissues.
a lot of the wooden culverts are holding up fine.
You want a tissue?
A lot of the wooden culverts are doing well.
Go right ahead, Dixie. Sorry.
okay. So moving on to traffic and safety, there's a lot of similar slides. So in the effort of time, I might just jump ahead a little bit. Our traffic and safety team, traffic design group, is really responsible for, again, the delivery of plans, specs, and estimates. And these are focused on projects that deal with safety and mobility. So in 2022, our traffic design group advertised 7 projects for construction. Of the anticipated projects to be advertised in 22, all were advertised within that 30-day performance goal. To highlight a project that was primarily funded this past budget cycle, I will note the Burlington roundabout. So this included the construction of a single lane roundabout at the intersection of US Route 7, Shelburne Street, Ledge Road, and Locust Street. It also, what's that?
It's much better now. That's how it used to look, right?
Yeah. So that the photo on the screen is the existing conditions. It was a pretty confusing scenario there in terms of who had the right of way and turning movements, but we had a project to fix that. It cost about $10.1 million, and the project was completed this past fall. And it was actually ahead of schedule.
But do you have an after photo? This is it?
Yeah. So this is the after photo. Again, I showed a photo of the construction of the duct bank, and then a photo of the finished product on the right. And I included that because, the finished product, it looks great. by all accounts, it's operating well. And you'd never know the work that went in underneath the roadway when you drive through it. So I just like to kind of hammer this home and reinforce that.
Just curious, are yard signs allowed in the middle of that there?
They should not be. They should not be.
I hope we tear those signs, I'll tell you.
They're illegal.
We haven't started to enforce that at all. Yes.
Jesse, performance report on that project, after it's all said and done, is it moving traffic better? Or do you get reports back like that?
So we haven't done anything formal yet. So it's been operating, I think, in the roundabout format since November timeline. But it's certainly something we will look at. One of the primary drivers of this project was also safety. So, that's something that we'll need some more time with too, to ensure that, the types of crashes that were seen previously and maybe seen or recognized in the future, we'll be able to compare those.
Have you guys heard anything about it as far as where
Wasn't-
flows or anything?
Treacherous intersection with a school right there, Christ the King, if I'm not mistaken, at Callahan Park. So this is just 10 times better. I walk through there a lot, and my kids do soccer, and it's now much easier to get across the street to the Dunkin' Donuts.
I'll tell you that roundabout at Route 2 and 302 moves traffic so much better.
It was
Yeah,
20 years ago when,
like them.
who was the,
Tony?
Tony Redding.
Tony, and everybody laughed, that this was never gonna have a roundabout. And that guy worked on this thing for years and years and years, talking about roundabouts, and everybody ignored them. Now, it's the thing, I mean.
Well,
it's,
in Europe, they use them.
Yeah, I like them. I think it flows like Jane perfectly. That's a great intersection right there. You just don't even stop anymore. You just.
The one thing about this intersection that's nice, Jesse, the one, when you put plantings right up next to the lanes, like you have out in 2 and 302, it creates a visual problem because you can't see, as things get grown up in the end of summer. No, but you see how the brick and the stuff and the yellow line, there's not plantings right up to it. And so you don't have the visibility problem that you have with the one out here. But if you've noticed, when the plants are up 2 or 3 feet, some of them, you can't, it obstructs your vision. The other lanes, yeah.
Did you make it home safe last night? That's what I was worried about you.
I did make it, when Nathaniel drove me.
Yeah, okay, but everything was all right.
Yeah.
The roads were bad. Not
Yeah, the roads weren't great, and then this morning, all I could think of is snow and slush, don't rush.
No, it's not, actually, that sign, yeah. That
So,
was good, they did a good job.
yeah,
Good job.
no, you just don't overdrive the road.
That's right, there you hit it right there.
Besides, Richie drove me.
That could have been.
It was good,
Okay.
from Burlington back,
Oh,
yeah,
boy, got a lot of sandwiches down in Greenville, I'll tell you.
I know. And then Nathaniel and I had supper at the 3 Penny and
All right, good for you. I'm glad you made it. Yes, go right ahead, Jesse. Sorry.
Yeah, so just to close kind of the roundabout conversation, roundabouts really have evolved over the last 15 years, even my time with the agency. I remember kind of working as a designer on some of the first modern roundabouts that we were installing in Vermont. And it was a real struggle in dealing with the public and gaining some level of acceptance, before it's installed. And we've evolved to the point where communities are asking for these. So it's really great. I'll just close with that.
The
With
other,
regards-
Jesse, the design, so that, that bricking there, so if you had a tractor trailer truck, that was one of the complaints was, with trucks that they couldn't kind of come up on it to go around. It looks like that's designed to allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's the purpose. So that is it.
Except there wouldn't be a turn off to the notch.
Yeah, Jesse, one of these are gonna go at the notch. Have we heard that? Up to the.
Well, I know that they're kind of wrapping up a scoping effort on that. I haven't seen the recommendations or the potential alternatives, but I know it was floated around about potential prior to and after that would help to kind of monitor what types of vehicles could go through.
It would help trucks turn around.
Yeah. That's a good point. Head back the other way.
I had to get 'em,
It would, and that was part of the thought.
uh,
Okay, so the FY24 traffic and safety program is listed on tab 5E. We're showing an appropriation of $46.5 million. This is an increase of just over 900,000 compared to last year's program budget. Again, it funds 3 primary project phases: the engineering phase, the right-of-way acquisition, and construction. So the budget will fund construction of 24 projects and will fund the preliminary engineering or right-of-way acquisition on an additional 42 projects. So breaking this down, this includes 55 intersection improvement projects, 15 with FY24 construction funding. This category is really a mix. It's a wide range of scopes, and it can include everything from a Burlington type project that would be a roundabout installation to more of an asset project, such as the replacement of an existing traffic signal to modernize it or replace malfunctioning equipment. We also have 6 sign replacement projects, 5 with FY24 construction funding. These types of projects replace aging signs along corridors. We have 4 pavement marking contracts within this upcoming budget year. This includes restriping of the interstate, state, class 1 town highway, and class 2 town highway center lines. So to highlight a project we have in the FY24 budget, I will note the Diverging Diamond Interchange Contract 1. So I know we've talked about this with the committee previously, but at the US 7 Interstate 89 exit 16 interchange, we'll be constructing a diverging diamond. This will include roadway widening, new traffic signals, sidewalks, and shared use paths.
Jesse,
And-
what's the building that's so prominent in your slide?
The gas station.
Yep. So this is a gas station.
Champlain Farm?
Yeah, it's not, he's on the other side.
Yeah, we're on the McDonald's Burger King side of the intersection.
Yeah, you're on the Willisky side, right?
Yeah.
So
Is that-
Yeah, Willisky, the border was closer to Willisky. That should just about be on Willisky's borderline, just about there, I think, yeah.
The other side's.
The other side is where Costco's is and.
Yeah.
Correct.
Maple Fields.
Newski's Shipment Central.
It's, Costco or, Shipman's Costco's over there.
So are there?
Are we doing this just so,
Yeah,
Just
so
so you can get
he
there quicker.
did there, yeah,
Costco's
just wants to get there,
So is that intersection signalized?
yes.
it is currently, yes.
No, I mean, under this design, it would have to be, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, there's some.
Start
But
driving on the wrong side of the
The
road.
Yeah.
reason it becomes more efficient is you do not have those left turns.
That's
that
what
need
it
to be
is,
signalized.
Jesse. So, yeah,
you don't wait for this left turns.
Yeah, because you can see it here. If you're getting on the interstate, you're over here, you just go turn left and you don't have to cross this traffic.
so that's why it crosses the road like that. Okay, well, that makes sense
Here,
then.
it's over here, and you can hop
Yeah,
up.
so that's the same way to get on the interstate.
Gotta get a sign. where my-
So you're not crossing the traffic.
Yeah,
It's really congested there. I mean, you always get stuck.
okay, so that's where the
You
diamonds come
don't
in.
have a roundabout there, that would, then, as opposed to lights, huh?
So roundabouts were looked at as an alternative when this was initiated. And the diverging diamond was the most efficient and deemed to look like it would be the safest alternative as well.
I saw the other night on the news, or I don't know if I read it, Oregon or somewhere just opened their first diamond, diamond, so it must be something issue they're using elsewhere. But I had never heard about it until I saw this one.
Yeah, I actually, this past summer, I was telling House yesterday, but I drove through my first one like in real life over the summer, and it worked great. I almost didn't even notice that I was driving through it. It felt natural. They did a great job of funneling traffic to the right location. So it was encouraging to see.
Where was
So-
that?
What's that?
Where was it?
It was in Davenport, Florida, or Orlando area.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So I travel this a lot currently, and so does my wife. My wife commutes, and this is always the pinch point. So I just think this makes a ton of sense, and I can't wait till it gets put into place because that's just such a congestion point that it's well.
also, when that's completed, Costco will be able to sell gasoline every day, all day. Right now, they're limited to like 4 hours a day. That's why there's been opposition from Skip Valley, because he has the biggest station up top there. And he's doing a ton of business there. He's appealed this for, God, the last 5, 6, 7 years.
So is this in a wetlands area,
No,
this
he
project?
said it's in a wetlands area, but it's right behind his place where you get out of Costco. There, that's where he's, but I don't know where it is. I've never, there's no,
Where the
There's a
roadway is not
No, not the roadway.
wetlands.
behind it, there's a culvert. I know they just replaced one culvert on one side there, so.
I don't even know how they would even fit this project in with the amount of traffic that goes through there. How the heck do you keep traffic going and all of that?
That's structurally the challenge right now. They're gonna start it, but the traffic will be, they'll work so many hours and then shut down one.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Yeah, so the contract that we have, we've essentially planned to break this into 2 contracts. Contract 1 is just under $10 million, and it actually includes some of the subsurface utility work, along with some ledge work and the construction of retaining walls. So this is kind of an advanced contract that it's a lot of the behind the scenes or under the roadway work that would need to be done in order to construct what you ultimately see on the screen. So there's been a lot of effort, to your point, Senator Ingalls, about traffic management. So there will be a lot of night work on this project. You know, there won't be in-road work during major peak times or anything like that, to help to mitigate that. I mean, with that said, you're right. This is a very heavily traveled corridor, and this is major work that's going to be happening. So there will be impacts associated with that.
Yeah.
Jesse, how does a pedestrian cross?
Yep. So you'll
Yeah, but
see
then
that
then
there
how
are.
do you know if you want to cross the way, the other side. Yeah, how do you cross there?
So basically along all sides of the road, there are crossings that would get into the islands, and the shared use path would be extending below the bridge through the entire interchange. There's not crossings side to side through the interchange proper, but there would be that opportunity on other sides.
So you'd have to go to the far end of the double diamond before you can cross.
And
Direct there, walks.
It's still,
Yeah, but
still an improvement of what's there today. There's currently
Not
6
today.
lanes, and it's just treacherous, and there's
you walk in the
barely
traffic.
sidewalk. So this is,
and there are a lot of pedestrians that use
That's
this.
what I've heard.
road. I've been amazed when I've seen it.
So there's
Yeah.
6 lanes and now we're gonna have 4?
So Shaw's is up here and Winooski's down here, and you got a large pedestrian population, so they need to get up here. And so as long as they can cross here or back here,
They just stay
Just
on
not
one
in this
side.
area.
And that, so those walkways underneath the overpass are new
Yes.
and all that.
And I think that's what, when you go through that, I go through that about once a year, but it's like everything is there. I mean, the
People
pedestrian
walking,
is there, the bicyclists are there, the traffic's there, it's just busy.
Yeah, so in terms of construction schedule, I received word that they actually started this week. So they're going to be working throughout the winter, and they're hoping to finish up contract 1 in fall of this year.
Are the pedestrian crossings part of the project, or that's separate and already existing?
The pedestrian, basically everything you're seeing on the screen is
The side, the side-to-side crossings that we can't see, is that part of the project?
yes. And Senator Maz, I understand that you have requested maybe a little bit more detail on this project.
Yeah,
And
please.
potential future meeting. So I'm hoping to bring the project manager and we can talk in detail about the specifics.
No, we
of
haven't had a review in a
project.
couple of years, so it's, it's time for this committee to look at it just to see what's happening.
So the
So,
total project cost 9.7 is, and then you've got contract 1. Is 9.7 only for contract 1, or is that the total for a contract 2 or 3, I don't know how many contracts you envision here.
The 9.7 is solely for contract 1.
So
So
what
that
is the total estimated cost then?
It was on an earlier slide.
Oh, I'm sorry, missed it.
So I don't believe that was on an earlier slide, so that the additional contract would be about 12 million estimated right now.
Hmm.
So we'll plan, I know that Michelle is working with the committee, and later in the session, we can come down and provide a little bit more detail, show some visualizations and items like that. It is a pretty exciting project. So again, looking at the 10G reports, 10G1, these are added projects. I know in FY23 budget, there were a lot of added asset projects within this program. So we're still working through that batch. So there weren't a lot added this year. The only increased project within this within this program is the Colchester project we just talked about. The initial estimate included with the last budget cycle was significantly underestimated based on the complexities. This project in particular had a lot of risks tied to supply chain challenges, mainly around the water line procurement. And 10G3, these are projects that have been completed this past cycle. So moving into pavement, I know that we're running short on time. Our paving program is developing plans, specs, and estimates for project types that are focused on preserving or improving our roadway surfaces. Again, these address safety, mobility, and asset condition. In 2022, our team advertised 27 projects for construction. Of those projects, 79% were advertised within 30 days of the targeted advertisement date. So I know historically I've spent a few minutes kind of running through the general pavement treatments that are used within the program. I've shared this with this committee for the past couple cycles, so I won't spend a lot of time with it, but kind of working from least complex to most complex, we have leveling type projects, which essentially includes a lift of pavement on top of the existing surface. We have preventative maintenance work, which is a very thin overlay of pavement. And this treatment is used on roadways that are generally in good shape. So it's not applicable everywhere. It's utilized as a measure to keep roads that are pretty good in pretty good shape.
Where'd you get that?
So past year they ended it, but it's helpful because they trying to remember what is leveling and what is maintenance and what is overlay and what is
Level and overlay.
Yeah,
Now
so
you're
this,
getting up
this
there.
this is kind of the progression of that leveling piece. So level and overlay includes a thin lift of pavement that basically serves to level the road or get it back into shape. And that is then followed up by a full lift of pavement. A mill and fill is similar to a level and overlay, but the first step in that process would be the removal of 2 inches of pavement, for example. And that's done in situations where there might be excessive cracking or there's a corridor or section of roadway where the grade or the profile of the road cannot be raised. So areas where you might have curb or drainage.
Hey, money,
this is 2 years.
money is gone crazy these days.
Yeah, from the 2020 slide, the mill and fill on class 1 highways doubled.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've been seeing that, and this, you'll see it on the reclaim slide as well. But the primary reason for that discrepancy between the state system and the class 1 town highway on the mill and fill is the environment you're working in. And with a lot of those roads, and I know we had a pretty long conversation last cycle about the Burlington and Winooski class 1 town highways, and those are good examples of projects where we're working around drainage facilities, we're working around utilities, we're working in corridors that have significant traffic volumes and parking restrictions, and oftentimes require night work. And that's the primary driver between the cost discrepancies, state versus class one. The reclaim treatment is essentially a treatment that would remove a portion of the existing pavement and reclaim below the paved surface. And when I say reclaim, it's almost like a rototilling, and it's a process where we can add material or which would allow us to stabilize and create a consistent base on which to put a new level of pavement. And you'll see that this price is significant as well. It can vary based on, the width of the road, but also the environment it's in.
It's gonna come in the future. This is crazy. It's some boy. Your fees are gonna be, let me tell you, because this federal money dries up. Oh, it's gonna be tough. Go ahead.
Last session, we did some language on glass reuse substrate, so recycled glass. Is that at all going to posing an opportunity to reduce some of the materials cost, or is it pretty much a wash?
Yeah, I think where we've been primarily looking at the use of that material, Senator Tittinen, would be more on the roadway reconstruction side as an additive or replacement of sand borrow, which is basically a layer that we utilize to get below frost depth. And I know it is allowed as through our spec book now. I'm not aware if any contractors have chosen to utilize it on construction jobs. So I will say that, and I've mentioned this to the committee in the past, our paving program really has evolved over the last 15 years or so. It has transitioned from straight paving to some more corridor type improvements, and those are recognized in some of the more complex treatments such as reclaims or mill and fills. We're looking to replace culverts or widen shoulders, improve pavement markings, make some bike ped improvements, slope stabilizations, guardrail improvements, as well as the installation of centerline rumble stripes. So they're transitioning to more of corridor type projects that can fit within the scope.
The rumble strips, they used to go up in the center. They're working out well. There's very, very, very few complaints I hear anymore. I haven't heard any. The original deep rumble strips, we had a problem with Cambridge there, and now that they're kind of smooth, but yet you get noticed when you do hit them. I think it's working out well. Is that what the reports are, you think?
Yeah, and this is more anecdotal, but actually, it's probably about 2 years now. We've actually modified the design so it's more of a wave-like rumble.
Yeah.
And since we made that change, the number of complaints that we've received as well have gone down significantly. And that new
noise factor, the neighbors were calling about noise. I remember through the town of North Hero there was some complaints, but now since we've changed that formula, I haven't heard a thing, and it's working well.
Yeah, the new design, it's intended to maintain that same jolt and noise to the driver, but it is supposed to lessen the noise outside of
right.
So they seem to be working well, which is great.
Yeah, good.
So the FY24 paving program shows an appropriation of just over $141 million. So this is actually a decrease of about 17 million compared to last year's budget. Again, it funds the 3 primary project phases: engineering, right-of-way, and construction. This will fund 49 paving projects, construction of 49 paving projects, and will fund the preliminary engineering or right-of-way acquisition on an additional 38 projects.
I would dare say that this 141 will probably come in line with past at 120, 125 million because of the inflation costs. So it's unfortunate we won't do more. We'll probably do as much, but because of the, like I just saw the cost, what's happening here and some of those figures is, so you're gonna do, I mean, we're not complaining, but we're gonna do about the same with 141 million versus if we had 125 million, because the cost
Yeah.
down to the roof.
So last year really was a banner year, both in terms of the dollar amount, the number of projects, and the number of mileage. So the mileage that's being proposed with this budget is 248 miles, and I'm looking at that from a calendar year perspective. I just think that's a little bit easier to digest and comprehend. And you're right, Senator Mazza. This is still the second highest paving budget that I've seen.
Yeah.
And in terms of mileage, it's still above what we would kind of consider
Right.
the normal year from, several years ago. So we're still up a little bit in terms of mileage. But you're right, that money is not going as far
It's
as,
unfortunate, too bad, but.
so looking at the 10G reports, and I think you referred to this, Senator Mazza, again, 10G1 is showing projects that have been added. 10G2, this is the price increase slide, and you'll see the first 5 projects on this list have significant increases. And the budget cycle last year contained estimates from kind of that October timeline, and that was kind of right before we started to see the inflation hit and the price increases within the program. The first 5 projects on this list are all in that complex category. And they are the projects that are reclaims and are inclusive and long in nature. And for Marshfield, Danville, Burlington, Brattleboro, Newfane, those are all projects that were advertised and the bids came in higher than estimated. Cambridge, Johnson, and Hartford have not been advertised yet. They're in development, and we are refining the estimates as design progresses, and we're able to evaluate the bidding trends. This past year, it was, like I said before, challenging from a labor, truck, supply chain perspective. So we've been adjusting estimates to see that.
I'd like you to know it's to the Danville town line, it's through Cabot. So, Senator Birchlick is,
But your commute, right?
Huh?
Your commute.
yes, but my commute.
Was that road a little bumpy again, or?
Oh,
Yeah, they think it's
Or-
no, I, look, people ask me how I made it home and I made it in. And I've commuted Route 2 since 1973. That is 50 years. And I've never not made it because of snow. And I think that's a great testimony to, well, I think to our road crew. Now, there've been times you've had to wait a while because, traffic got, but I think that's a fairly good commentary on how our,
We had
our roads are
excellent
kept.
road people. This morning, they were just out there and they've been out all night. Terrific job.
I hate to think of how I've aged commuting on Route 2.
Like I said, you started working 9 years old.
Yeah, I wish.
50 years.
Yeah, right. So it would be nice. I mean, there are parts that are necessary, but there's other roads in the state as well.
Okay, go right ahead.
Last slide I have is the 10G3 report for paving, and this is again the projects that are no longer funded for construction. And
Jesse, like always, excellent presentation. Appreciate it. And
Is that the end or?
that's the end.
Oh,
you're right on time. Look at that. Wow, talking about
Yeah.
on time.
they have been completed or will be.
Correct.
Well, thank you. Okay,
Thank you very much, very
Thank
nice.
you guys. It was good to see you.
Thank you as well, Jesse.
Carolyn, is that you?
That is me.
Okay, you're next. Thank you. Okay, our next item this morning, for those of you listening to us, is going to be bridge program and advanced cancellation delays. We have with us Carolyn Coda, she will tell us what exactly she's gonna cover this morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. So let me, just, get myself situated here.
Seems like it is long.
I feel like they're
But I don't
The
know
thermostat?
if you even touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on cool. Shall we go to warm?
Well, just
Yeah.
somewhere in between, yeah. Try it a little bit.
Oh, it doesn't actually do anything. It's just like psychological.
Creates the impression.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Last night, we were there all the time.
Yeah, the periodontist, I didn't get out until like 4:30 or so.
We were there 3:30. Yeah.
No, about 3:15. Yeah. So I. It's. I mean, the businesses.
Candy Drive is really,
Yeah.
all the medical offices, boy, there's, I go to, they're over there.
But there are a lot of housing.
Oh, sure.
Condos and
One of
stuff.
the Brandy was one of the first ones up there, my brother and sister-in-law bought a condo there. I lived there for a short while. Well,
Anyway.
wasn't much there.
There's a lot of land to be developed there, so that's where they went.
They did well, that land too, so a lot of water that runs through there, protected that area.
No, they
Says you're talking.
done it well. They've done it well.
I'm having issues
Where's Chip?
sharing my screen.
I'll wait for things.
Caledonia, so I can't go up there. Sure. Wow.
There's a,
440,000.
Yeah. I want to figure out.
Sure.
Hey, bonuses.
there we
No.
go.
Before you left.
Yep.
Yep.
One sheriff worked $100,000 last year. He gave us $4,000.
You should have been a cop.
That's gonna hurt the sheriffs now, this bill that they got.
Well, so now, actually, two of them came in to testify in support.
We get it all.
So we got it.
Okay.
You want to turn your sounds?
No way to check support.
Then turn my,
He's building us.
you guys can,
Your speakers are off.
We're all getting.
my speakers are off,
They can hear you through that, so you don't need your microphone.
they can hear me okay.
There, thank you, Tom. Did you send your bill okay?
You got
Yeah.
You should have been a tech man, I'll tell you right now. Oh, okay, that's why you're so good.
So, good morning.
Good morning, welcome.
Welcome, I'm Carolyn Coda, the new Structures Program Manager, replacing Kristen Higgins, who retired last year. Would it be okay for me to go? I don't know any of you,
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
so,
sorry, let's introduce her.
because I wasn't.
Yeah.
Hi, Senator Russ Ingles.
Okay.
Andrew Perchlik with the Washington District, so here in Washington County and stuff.
Dick Mazick.
I know.
I'm Jane Kitchell.
I went for some.
Tom Chittenden, Chittenden Southeast.
Okay, great,
Do
thank
you have
you.
any connection to the Codas,
Yes.
the fuel dealers?
No, I don't. The Codas I'm
That's good.
related to are from the
Oh,
Montgomery
we have,
area.
we got you.
We have some
Free
in our
fuel.
Four Leaks area.
I think they're all, I
Yeah.
think they are related somehow,
Yeah.
married into the
How
name.
about the coda that's a lobbyist, is he
Matt Coda?
related
I don't know him.
for the fuel dealers?
The fuel-
Oh, yes, he is.
Not directly.
So this is, that's the Coda plan. I think that's what this is Bellows Falls. And that's,
Oh, the Violet Bridge, yes.
yeah, and then that's the Coda, I know there's a Coda facility right by that bridge.
Just, I did not
I
know
think it's
that.
just a coincidence, that's.
Okay. go
Okay, so
ahead.
we'll get started. So today we're gonna talk about the different funding splits for structures, our source distribution. We'll go over the 24 budget for interstate, state highway, town highway. A little update on our accelerated bridge program, and then I have some pictures from some completed projects from this past summer and future funding and risks. So our interstate program is all,
Like 90/10.
it's 90%, 10% state highway bridge program, 80/20. Some are a little bit like 81.7% or something like that. And then our town highway bridge program, it's typically the shared funding is 80% federal, 10% state, and then a 10% local share. With the new IIJA projects that were programmed in 23 budget, as well as ones that are going to be programmed in the 24 budget, the construction phase is 100% federally funded. So the towns won't have any share for the construction portion of the project. However, for the design and right-of-way easements if required, they would have to pay their regular share, which would be 10%. However, if they are closing the bridge to traffic and we don't have to maintain the traffic, they get a 5% cut on that. And then if it's a rehab, they get a 5% cut on that. And if it's a rehab and we close it to traffic, they have a 2.5% share. So there are some benefits. This is just the interstate showing that our federal funds are approximately for this 24 budget, it's 90.5% federal. And then from the TIB bond, it's 9.5%. And in state funding, it's 80.6% federal and then 19.4% state.
So we're not bonding for these, we're simply using the TID revenues for,
The TIB revenue, yeah,
there's no bonding.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I don't think.
I can verify, I will verify that.
But I think that we've just been using TID.
TIB, yeah,
For those investments that meet the definition of where TIP funds can be used.
and then in the state, the town highway, it's 88.5% is gonna be federally funded in this 24 budget. 8.3% is the TIB, and then 3.2% is the local share. So it's 88.5% because of that 100% share of construction funds. So it kind of averages out. So the budget for 24, it's 144.9 million for bridges. 106 projects are funded. 41 projects funded for construction, and our spending has increased 20.1 million from 23, up 16%. So this is just kind of the program funding trends over the past since 2008. This is the area of all of our main bridges and projects when we ramped up our spending, and then it kind of dropped again. Now our spending is increasing, in particular because of the IIJA funds and how we've increased it. And you can see that there's an increase there between 23 and 24. So we'll talk about the interstate bridge program. We have the proposed 50.3 million, 23 projects are funded, 8 projects funded for construction, including the bi-state bridge between Vermont and New Hampshire and I-89 between Lebanon and White River, Hartford. We've got our spending is up 9.7 million. Some of the highlights is we're going to be advertising project in Royalton on I-89, which is over Vermont 107, the New England Central Railroad and the White River. And in 24, we'll be spending close to 12 million. It's a 2+ year construction project. Currently under construction is 2 bridges north and south on I-91 in Westminster, and we're going to be spending about 9.4 million in 24. In Richmond, we're replacing Bridge 29, which is over the interstate 89, over I-89 near the Richmond fire station on Route 2, proposing to spend 5 million in 24. We have several bridges under construction in Fairleigh, St. Johnsbury on I-91, expect to spend about 6 million in 24, and then the Lebanon, New Hampshire, Hartford Bridge, about 3 million And we are also going to be advertising Bridge 18, which is exit 17 on I-89 this year, which is the replacement of the bridge over the interstate, redoing the on and off ramps, signalized project at 7 and 2.
That's a mess up there. They're backed up for miles.
Yep, so that project will be advertised, and that's gonna be a
What
2.
town is that?
It's actually Colchester.
Colchester.
It's Colchester, but I call it, it's the exit to the islands, exit 17.
Carolyn, I know this is an interstate highway, but interstate bridges, meaning over, between two states. So are all the bridges over the Connecticut responsibility of New Hampshire?
Yes, yes, they're all the responsibility of New Hampshire. They're the ones who are responsible for programming the project. They're responsible for procuring, they do the design in-house, or they hire consultants to do the design, and then they are the ones responsible for hiring the contractor to
Like
do
this
work.
bridge is closed. That goes over New Hampshire.
Yeah, so,
And so even if we wanted it open, we just have to wait till New Hampshire.
well, good news is, and I didn't quite verify it, but this is a project now.
Okay.
But we do have to cost share a bit.
Yes, we cost share, we go to the low water mark on the Vermont side of the Connecticut River, so whatever that, it can vary from bridge to
Right.
bridge, depending
There's that
on,
many feet of the bridge, we.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
responsible for that percentage, yep.
But the majority is on the New Hampshire tab.
But like that New York bridge that we rebuilt recently, that was half and half.
The Champlain,
Blew up and then rebuilt.
yeah, the Champlain Bridge, so those bridges were a little bit more unique because it was, I think, a 50. Well, it's interesting because the Alberg, Rouse's Point Bridge, Vermont is responsible for the maintenance projects. We were responsible for building that project, designing that project. Lake Champlain Bridge, New York was responsible for, they're responsible for maintenance, everything to do with that.
The one went down and for the ribbon cutting?
In Alberg, they had a dispute
No,
over.
no,
over
that
one-
was south.
Lake Champlain,
That
the
was
one in
Lake
Addison.
Champlain.
Yeah.
One in Alberg, they had a dispute over who got paid what wages.
Yes, I actually, unfortunately, it shows my
Collie
age.
and I cut the ribbon up there, and there was a big battle between wages on the New York side, wages on the Vermont side.
Yeah, we had to be careful.
Because it was a joint effort. Oh, I knew that was a big battle that time, because what wages did you pay, Vermont wages or New York?
Yeah,
What's the name of that program?
Davis-Bacon.
Davis-Bacon wages, yeah, so it was different. And they
Yeah.
actually had some issues too on the Champlain Bridge.
Oh, really? On that-
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
concern about that.
What town is the terminus of the bridge in Vermont, on the Champlain Bridge?
It's Addison.
Addison?
The town of Addison.
So a highlight of, not a highlight, but, just to share how quickly we responded to the issue that we had on I-89 in Richmond this
Oh,
past
boy,
summer.
I went to see that.
Wow. It was a $15 million emergency culvert replacement.
Unbelievable.
The culvert failed in 22. We quickly went in and got a crossover, got traffic off the southbound onto the northbound crossover. That culvert was 50 feet below the surface, and
What kind of culvert was it?
it was a pipe that
It
failed.
was a galvanized metal.
It was a galvanized metal pipe, and so what we did is we replaced it.
50 feet.
Yeah,
I went to see
Was
that.
there a lot of
I
water?
drove up to see this here. This was amazing to see
Yeah.
what they had to do. They had to go down how many feet, and they worked 24 hours a day on Ireland at that contract. And, wow.
Was there a lot of water that came from there?
well, we weren't really sure why it was failing, and we did discover that water was at the inlet. Water was bypassing the inlet of the pipe and going around. And so what we did is we replaced the southbound portion with a new box culvert, which you can see on the right. And we did some repairs to the inlet on the northbound side because we feel that it's okay, and and we've got the design all done so that in 5 to 10 years we will finish.
The inlet is on the south side of
The inlet's on the northbound side, so we will go back in like 5 to some maintenance repairs to the inlet.
It's a stream, not stormwater. That goes-
It's a stream, yeah.
And this is, then it's a concrete.
It's a concrete, yeah.
And-
So on the 10G report, some new projects we have is there's a culvert in Montpelier under the interstate that we're scoping. We have our first official, what we will call a wildlife crossing project in Waterbury, which is a culvert under the interstate. And then we've added a project to paint a bunch of the bridges that we've recently put new concrete decks on. It includes some bridges in Berlin, the Waterbury bridges that we did a few years ago, all the way up. There's one bridge up in Highgate right at the border that we replaced the deck 10 years ago and it never got painted, the steel, so we're gonna do that. Completed projects this year was Sharon. We had a rehab of bridges 17 north and southbound on 89, 2 deck replacements in Weathersfield on 91, and then our Richmond culvert. So now increase in cost from the 10G report. So the construction project at Fairleigh and St. Johnsbury, that was an increase because the original scope was just to do membrane pavement, do some repairs to the deck surfaces, but we just determined that a couple decks needed to be full replacement. So we added that to the project, so that increased the cost. Another big one is the Springfield 91 project. Originally, it was just Bridge 28 north and southbound on 91, then we added 26 and 27, and then we added 25 northbound. And it's going to be about a $40 to $50 million project when it is actually constructed. We're going to use crossovers. We're going to reconfigure the clover leaves that are there now. And we have just determined that we're going to go with a CMGC project delivery for this project because it is so large. And we want to get a contractor on board earlier so that we can develop the plans in the appropriate way and get some costs up front, and we'll negotiate the cost of the project when it's said and done. Another project that saw a very large increase is the Westminster project, which is under construction. The low bid for the project was 61% over our estimate. There were 2 bidders. And due to the condition of those bridges, we made the determination that we were going to award it. And then when the contractor went out to start looking at things, they realized that the pier caps were beyond any repairs. So we've added the cost to replace the pier caps on the north and southbound. And so I think the low bid estimate was around 17 million, and we're already up to $23 million for the construction of this project.
It's killing us.
It is, and this particular project, this was supposed to be advertised quite a few years ago, but due to budgetary stuff, we held back. And what happens when we hold back? The condition of the bridges get worse, and we just
And the price goes up.
and the price goes up.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So that's what happened here.
Wow.
Another, we have these bridge maintenance projects. So the other one was this Westminster project, which it was, originally thought it would cost like $150,000 to do some minor repair, and now it's going to be about $500,000. So that's why it's on this MG report. So we'll talk about the state highway bridge program. So we have 60 projects funded. It's 57.4 million. It's about the same as what it was last year. Just went down about $400,000. We've got 23 projects funded for construction, 3 bridge preservation maintenance projects, and then there's 3 Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut river bridges. So one highlight is the Bridge 5 on US 2 between North Hero and Alburgh. We'll be spending about $9 million in state fiscal year 24. That project, it's a deck replacement of that bridge. We'll be maintaining traffic 1 lane at a time. There is no detour for this structure. The detour is 60 miles, something like that. So we have to do it that way. They'll start, we should start seeing them do some work. They're going to be doing a lot of stuff off of barges because this crosses the lake, starting this spring. And then we've got the North Hero Grand Isle Drawbridge project, which
Never heard of that.
no.
Oh,
And that one is I have some slides on the next page.
This committee.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so the next project is, we have the rehab of the Hartford Quincy Gorge Bridge. So this project, we advertised it this last fall, and we only had one bid, and the estimate was just too high to award it to the one bidder. So we're re-advertising the project. We've made some changes to the contract to entice more contractors to bid. There was just too many restrictions in that contract, and the contractors were, it was just too risky to take on to be able to complete it in time. So we've made some changes. It actually got advertised again yesterday, and we'll see about 5 million spent in 24. We have the Royal.
Have to do a replacement, or do they
No, the Quincy Gorge Bridge is a rehabilitation. They're,
keep a lane open, or do they?
yeah, they'll be keeping one lane open.
It is a historic bridge, isn't
And
it?
it's a very historic bridge, yes.
Quincy Gorge.
Yeah. So that one,
A lot of foot traffic.
and there's a lot of foot
Well,
traffic, and
the
the
work-
town wanted so many restrictions, it was almost impossible to construct. I mean, it was gonna be like a 3 to 4 year construction because you had to take all the equipment away, and now we're just like contractors there, they can do their thing.
I don't know how you work on a bridge so high up, but you can't work underneath that.
I know.
No, I won't be underneath that.
No, I mean, it's just amazing how high that is.
Yep.
The highest.
It is very high.
Jane, I was just noticing, we're gonna have to get taller boots here. We don't have very many bridge projects in our
You don't have any
area.
bridges.
So we gotta get.
Well, let's see what happens when we get, let's see what we get going.
We'll ford the river.
Yeah. Let's see what we got.
If you
We
get a bridge, you're all right.
we might have something.
We'll just
We
cut a
got
cedar,
the Linden Barton paving.
we'll
that's
just
gonna
cut a
be
cedar
fun.
log and we'll throw it across, and we'll get across.
Okay. So we also,
Our term will come.
your turn will come.
It's hard.
We have the Royals Bridge 14. There's a New England Central Railroad bridge over Vermont 14. And that actually is going to be, we already have a contract on board. We're putting in a brand new bridge and realigning Vermont 14, so it's gonna be a little bit safer. Right now, it's one of those like S curves, and the railroad bridge is like only wide enough for like one vehicle to get through. So I think things are gonna improve there. And then under construction, we have a bridge in 302 in Berlin and one in Berrytown. And then I can't see what's up there. So, and then the culvert on US 4 in Killington. So North Harold Grand Island construction update. I know that Senator Maz has asked for us to make another presentation in the future on this one, but just to give you an idea, it's only $86 million. And the bridge was open to traffic on November 7th. They are still continuing demolishing the temporary bridge, and contract completion date is still July 1.
That was 25 million just to put the temporary bridge and tear it down.
I know, it's
But
crazy.
it's the only entrance and the only blend, like she said, you go 50 miles, you can't detour anybody.
Yeah, you can't detour anyone, so.
Unless you give them a boat.
And here's just some pictures here on the left, you can see.
Well, just to put that in perspective, that bridge represents what would be 10% of the entire transportation budget for this 24.
If it was all done right.
10%.
What district?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
My name's up
I think
there.
it's yours.
Okay, so
Your,
this,
your boat's gonna go under there. That's how we had to raise the bridge, because you got a boat so big.
You
you can't get it through, right?
So it's got good tuning under it. Yeah.
Here, Ryan was showing.
Yeah, so here's some pictures of some construction. Here's the new drawbridge right there. There's your temporary bridge that's being demolished.
Look at the steel on that.
I don't even know how a contractor, I've said this before, how they can bid on
So they
something.
would price
They
it
can't,
out.
that's why it's so, and this was a CMGC project too. It's very, it's hard.
I don't know how they're gonna go on the lake, down. on
Barges,
piers,
yep.
And,
Wouldn't catch
my
me down
help
in
was,
there.
Like I said, all out of state people, because we don't have a contract for that
Yeah,
size.
that was Chimbro, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So is that living space in those concrete blocks?
That is actually where a lot of the mechanics and the electrical is all stored, and then they're gonna be,
Make contracts.
this is gonna be the spot where
Lakefront property.
the gatekeeper, the drawbridge operator will be their space to, they'll be,
They're 20.
no.
Okay. For an hour.
If there's an emergency and the Coast Guard has to get through, they'll get called and they would come and lift it up. So the 10G new project. So you guys have heard the term BPSP2, which is the new asset management way of bringing projects on board. So with the BPSP2, this was structures year 22. So they identified a lot of projects, new projects that we're going to have in our program on the state and the town highway system. So you will see in some of these projects that have been identified, a lot of them are on class 1 roads. They're we'll say that they're in the urban setting, some of the communities. They're big projects, and these we're looking for funding to start our scoping and our engineering for these projects. So some of those big ones is Bradford, US 5. We've got one in some deck replacements in Dorset. This
So US 5, the bridge in Bradford, that's the one by the mill.
yeah, it's the one with the yes, it's by the mill. Yep.
South end of.
South end of the town, exactly. This
And that
Wilmington-
would be a rehabilitation then.
it says rehabilitation. That's what the BPSP2 program came out of. But what we'll do is scoping. Well, it's historic. It's it will probably be rehab. So, but it's hard to tell right now because they just kind of identified the projects, and we're going to program the project so that we can start doing some work and figure out what it is, what's best for that particular bridge. Some of the other highlighted ones is Wilmington. That is the bridge right at the intersection of 100 and Vermont 9, which has been in the works for years, and a couple deck projects. This Norton project,
Pay attention to that,
Norton project is on Vermont 114. This is where there's a culvert that's sort of failing. The district went in and did some emergent needs work this past fall. And we decided that at this point we needed to program it so that within the next 5 years we can get that replaced.
I've heard North, where, seriously, where is North?
Right in the right-hand corner of Vermont with New Hampshire.
Okay,
Yeah.
I heard,
it's right here,
oh, boy, right on,
Yeah.
okay.
but it's not on the New Hampshire border, Canaan is.
Right, Canaan, yeah,
But Norton.
But it's near Canaan, right?
right on the Canadian border right there.
Oh,
I think that's where Earth People's Park.
It was, yeah.
Many
It was.
years ago, if you remember that.
Here are identified completed projects this year. We had Addison, Braintree's one of our highlighted accelerated bridge program projects, a couple bridges on 14 and Callis, rehab deck in Chester. Of course, the Middlebury project is finally complete, done, no more spending. We'll be closing that one out soon.
What did that come in? That had to, in total, that had to be.
I think it was close to 100 million. I don't know offhand.
which one's that?
Middlebury.
The tunnel.
Oh, the tunnel, yeah, I think it was 97 or something like that.
Yeah. Couple deck jobs in Montgomery, and then this Williston project has been, it's completed because we're closing this project out. The pipe actually failed a lot sooner than anticipated, and we went in with state funds and we replaced the culvert in kind. So that project will be removed from the program.
Middlebury, you go right straight through this town. I mean, it's unbelievable what they did. Underneath, you never know it's there.
Yeah, you would not,
You
right.
never know it's there. I mean, it's unbelievable, the amount of work that went into that. It's right in the middle of the city here.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, when I saw it, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was just amazing.
So our 10G expanded cost, that Chester project, Prem 45, this is a project that it's massive on 103, which is the national highway system. It goes over the Green Mountain Railroad and the Williams River. It's very complex, and it's at the point where we, based on the cost that we see for similar bridges and structures, we've actually upped that construction estimate. It's not ready to be advertised, won't be advertised for another year or so, but that estimate's gone up double, like from a $6 million, $7 million project to a $15-16 million project. And that's a case where we got to put in a temporary bridge because it's 103. There's no way to get around it. And the temporary bridge itself will probably be $2 to $3 million.
So the in over Norwich, that's a new bridge.
That is the bridge that was, well, I say the same thing. That bridge
Or
was
is
probably
that-
done about 30 years ago, so they're doing a rehab on it. They're doing some work
It's
on it.
a main bridge, right?
It's the bridge right there at the exit that goes over to,
Yeah.
yeah.
The big lights. and-
Yep, that's the one.
That's 30 years?
It was done in the 90s, I believe.
What?
I have a project that's just been identified as a project that needs some rehab work, and I'm like, oh, I worked on that one. Oh yeah, that was 30 years ago. Yeah, okay. Another big project, so just to identify the Reedsboro project, this is another one of those projects, we advertised it on time. There was only one bid, and the estimate was 50% over our estimate. So we didn't award it, and we're redesigning it, hoping to program for construction in fiscal year 25, and it's gonna be about a $25 million project.
That's on 100?
Yes, in Reedsboro, and Reedsboro is
I know, it's right on the Mass border.
Mass border. It's a major bridge, so we're relooking at that.
Would you say our program today, because of the cost, are we making progress on the bridges? I mean, are we behind or?
No, I think we are making progress. I think we still are, even
Cost increases is crazy.
despite the cost increases. I think that we're still ranked very high across the
Thanks for
nation.
Federal money, I'm sure, because
Yeah,
that is a lot of.
that it's helped, but our
About that.
score, I think, is very high. I mean, we have ranked up. We're one of the better states in the country as far as our bridge infrastructure is concerned.
Yeah, we have a chart on that in terms of the bridges and
You know,
what the condition somewhere.
but it's just, without that money, where would it be, or how would you fund it? Because without that federal.
If we didn't have the federal money, we would be in very, very
we would be,
poor
you know,
shape.
We're talking big increases here now. We're not talking about 1%, 2%.
Well,
No.
you know, we've heard about transformational changes, right? I mean, that's what we were trying to spend this money for. So we're seeing these projects, transformational changes of fixing this infrastructure. So who knows what's gonna happen in the next 30 years as far as when we come upon this again.
But I've never experienced.
money will come from.
increase in cost that I've seen since over years, usually 5%, something. Now we're talking 30%.
We're talking like 100%, right? I mean,
100%, I just
it's-
saw one here was 100%.
I have one that was
This is what's
100%.
amazing, how are we gonna do that without some assistance in the years to come?
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
We'll never raise that kind of money, especially with gasoline taxes declining.
Yeah.
All those other things, we're gonna be a problem.
Yep, and we have a couple culvert liners that we had proposed to be liners, but we've decided, Agency of Natural Resources thought that it should be replaced, and we coordinated with them, and now we're gonna be replacing a couple culverts with new replacement projects. So the Town Highway Bridge Program, we have 56 projects funded. 7 projects are funded for construction in 24, and we have 1 Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut River Bridge, which is the Lime Thetford. No, that's not the Lime Thetford. Take that back. It's Bradward. So, one of the things that I want to highlight is that, our program's up $7 million from last year, 19%. We have added 31 projects for engineering and scoping, and that's due to the IIJA projects as well as those new BPSP2 projects that were identified. Brattleboro Hinsdale, which is the big bridge project between Brattleboro and Hinsdale, New Hampshire, we're gonna be spending about $8 million this summer, and I've got some pictures of that.
We had to do the road, remember we had to reroute the road, is that the?
It's a brand new road, right, it's a new alignment, and we had to relocate the tank farm. That's the term, the tank farm, because the road was gonna go over the tank farm, and that is, from a safety perspective, that's not acceptable. So we actually relocated the tank farm, and I have a slide of that and the costs associated with that.
I think the road was coming in, the bridge, the new entrance to the bridge was having to be in a different place.
Yep.
And there was an issue around relocation. of the
Yes,
road.
exactly. So some of the projects that are gonna be under construction or being advertised this year for construction starting in 24 is a Ludlow Village, there's a bridge that we're actually going, it's closed to traffic now. We're actually gonna replace it with a pedestrian bridge, and then that would be taken out of service from a transportation mode. Springfield is a project. This Springfield project is one where we advertise on time. It's a culvert replacement, but it's a very risky construction. It was a 21-day closure. We had one bidder, and that one was over 127% over the estimate.
What do you do? You still?
We didn't award it.
Yep.
And what we did is we went back to the community, to Springfield, saying, hey, can we have more days for this closure? We have to close it. Can we have more days? And they are working with us to make a few changes so that we can re-advertise it this spring. We've got a bridge in Grafton that will be advertised. This project in Hartford, that's the VA cutoff road. So there's a project too that we had anticipated originally when we programmed it, that it was going to be like a $6-7 million project. We advertised it recently in November, December, and we had 2 bidders. And after we had updated our estimate to get in line with today's prices, the low bidder came in at $20 million. So this is a project that originally, when we originally thought about it, it was going to be like $7 million, and now it's a $20 million project. But it will be under construction, and it's all good news. The existing bridge is in really poor
Do
condition.
you have any contractors, when they bid on this, they get halfway through the job and they can't finish it, they go under or something, and the bonding steps in there, they have to be bonded?
Yes.
Do we have many that ever fail halfway?
I only know, I don't even know if I know of, I mean, I could check, but I believe there was an issue with the Milton Bridge. That was the design build project on.
Are we keeping you up?
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're drawing a lot of hair out.
They have free coffee now.
Yeah.
Yeah, go get it.
My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
I apologize for doing so.
Yeah, It is Thursday.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone had to get up early if they wanted to get to work today.
And the roads are so
And the
bad.
roads.
You know, they're terrible, you know.
Show the driveway.
Yeah, that was- But no, there have not been many.
Slow.
We have a project in Polteny that's under construction, and then we have actually a covered bridge under construction
And
this summer.
this is the competitive program, right? It's the town highway bridge program, or
It's,
this is just projects that.
these are projects that have been
AMT
identified through asset management
Right.
that so we're basically,
This isn't the town structure.
it's not the
Not-
town structure grant
I think
program.
that's
That's what I.
That's what you were thinking of. That's Joel Perigo's group. So
Is that a bridge right there that they're putting up there? Is that?
what, on the right,
Hello?
so that's the actual reinforcing steel cage for the pier that they're gonna actually lift into place into the forms in the river.
Wow.
And
You know,
So this is Bradwell Hinsdale. It's a $61 million project. Cost split is 20% Vermont, 80% New Hampshire.
That's good. We like that.
Yeah.
Would a drawbridge be cheaper?
No. No. The completion date is October 25th, 24.
Take the temporary drawbridge.
Yeah.
Bring it up.
The nice thing is they're using the existing bridge for their maintenance of traffic. So had they had to put in a temporary bridge,
Boy, forget it.
yeah, forget it, right? We are building our Vermont abutment right now. The Vermont Pier is gonna be built in the spring of '23. So this summer, there's a 90-day road closure plan in order to build that approach on the Vermont side to the bridge. They hope to set steel in the summer, and the tank relocation cost is at about $5 million to move those tanks. It's a right-of-way cost. And then we have a new project, which is Bradwell Hinsdale again, and this will be for the rehabilitation of that existing bridge. Once traffic is moved off, they're going to upgrade that to be a bike and pedestrian bridge. They'll do some rehab of the truss. You can see that way up, you can barely see the existing bridge,
It's a truss bridge.
and it's a truss bridge, yeah, right in there. And here is, we're looking at the New Hampshire side. You can see the piers, and that pier cage is gonna go inside that right there. And this is our Vermont abutment, not much to see. And this is that tank farm that's been relocated.
Huh, was that in New Hampshire?
No, Vermont.
It was Vermont.
Vermont, so, yeah. So some of our new projects, so again, we have a lot of new projects in the Town Highway Bridge Program. A lot of them are identified IIJA projects as well as the BPSP2 projects. So this Linden project is the Chamberlain Bridge. Ann Gamble asked me to verify that for you. So that is, we've determined that. A lot of covered
Is
bridges.
that on a traveled route?
The Chamberlain Bridge?
Because we were wondering, but-
it is. Maybe not.
well, because
Well,
there
is
is
it
a covered
closed?
bridge on the north end of Lindenville, that is not on Route, it's not on Route 5.
It's not, this would be a town highway,
So it's gonna be a town
the
highway.
town highway bridge.
I'm wondering if that's the name of the one in Linden Center?
See if we can bring up Chamberlain Bridge.
Okay. Some other highlights as we're looking up that information is Montpelier. That's the State Street Bridge down here that has the buildings on it. That's an identified project.
So Winooski Burlington Bridge. that's-
So this is the big one. So Burlington Winooski, that is the bridge.
It's Linden Corner,
Yeah. we got it
it's
right
Linden
here.
Corner,
How much is that Burlington Winooski Bridge? going
yeah.
on?
So right now we
I
got
know
the raise
exactly where it
grant
is now.
for $24.5 million,
It's
which is
Linden Corner,
80%
right,
federal.
up by Furniture.
and then 10% state. And then, the town has to, each town has to pay 5%. So we think at this point, we've just hired a consultant to assist us with procuring, we're gonna go design build on this project. We have to have the money obligated for construction by, September of 26.
Because that bridge, you can't put a substitute bridge. I mean, that's. not-
No, what the scope for this project is to slide a bridge in, so like what they did in Hartford on the interstate, quite a few years back. They are gonna have to close it to traffic.
Sure.
in order to do that.
Winooski Burlington. That's it.
Yeah, and we're also looking at the intersection of Riverside
Is that the
Avenue.
one by the mill?
Yes,
That's
so this is a
it.
huge
27
project.
plus.
So you go up the hill and Trinity's on the right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we've programmed in our budget $2.5 million for engineering right now.
Wow.
We are working with FHWA to finish the grant. They call it the NOFA document, which is the actual signed agreement with the federal FHWA and us for this money. It's very critical that we get that obligated in 26. So in the 26, 27 budget, we will be obligated construction funds. So we're gonna start looking, that's gonna be huge.
Huge project.
It's gonna be about 40
Well, like I
million.
said, it's been there since 27 plus.
Yeah, Yeah, so that one has been identified. We have a bridge in Swanton, big one, class 1 in Swanton. So these are, a lot of these in the BPSP2 projects are.
Swanton 78, that's the route that goes over to Alberg and then.
Yeah, so this bridge is right in Swanton Village. So when as you're heading out of the village to go to Alberg, it's that first bridge over the Missisquoi. And they're having a lot of issues with maintaining that one. The town is having a lot of issues. And then we keep on going. We've got Windsor Bridge. We've got a bunch of trust projects. Let's see.
You got Troy for Bobby Starr.
We have the Troy Covered Bridge, which is the bridge that burned down. There's a temporary bridge there.
There is, it's actually nice, it's traveled a lot, that road, so it's nice to have that bridge there.
Are there circumstances where the local share is just too overwhelming for that community that it actually prevents progress? I just think of Winooski. I mean, Winooski isn't going to benefit as much from that bridge as much as Colchester and Essex as they get over to Burlington.
But it's in Winooski.
Right, but everybody travels right through there. Winooski's like 1 square mile,
They
so
don't,
it's not Winooski.
that bridge. They would take 5%.
But it has circumstances where they can't raise the money preventing the project. I just want Colchester to pay a little bit.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, I don't think they're all,
The pies are going up.
they're all on board.
That's Route 7, if you're mistaken. You go through Colchester.
Well, Winooski is so small,
He
and it's
doesn't know
right
what it
at the
is.
road. Just.
So the thing,
Tired today.
Winooski for us.
He needs some rest.
so this, so both communities, so these two communities have been working on trying to get this project for a long time, from my understanding. And then they decided to go with, try to get the RAISE grant. And we've been meeting with both cities once a month. They were involved in the process of hiring the consultant that's going to be doing the design build. So we've been really communicating well with them, and we'll start doing a lot of communication with those communities in the near future to make sure that whatever we
Make sure
do.
South Noise is involved in that.
Yeah, we're not even
Put some money-
close to that.
South Burlington, okay.
Yes, yes.
Well, all the traffic when we detour, by the way, is
Yeah.
going to go through South
Good,
Burlington.
Put them right straight through, right in front of his house.
What bridge is this one?
Winooski
Bruce
Bridge.
Bridge.
It's really serves Colchester.
Yeah, it comes, Route 7 goes through Colchester. He doesn't understand that anyway. He knows how to
Okay.
get to Costco. Yes.
It's all about Costco. So we did complete some bridges this past summer. One in Andover, Huntington, Leicester, Ludlow Village, which was huge, and there'll be some pictures soon. Our expanded cost, we only had two projects listed. One was the Salisbury Cornwall project, which was the covered bridge between those two communities that burned down. And so they finally, both towns have determined they want a new bridge, a new conventional bridge, but maybe possibly with a cover on it, but they don't want timber for fear that it's going to burn down again. So our estimate has increased to include some of that construction estimate. Westminster is another project where we advertised it, we awarded it. Contractor went out there, started doing some preparation work, and we discovered that the existing structural steel was just a deck rehab. Existing structural steel is in such poor condition that they didn't think it could support the new deck. So we canceled our contract with that contractor, and we are now designing a new bridge, hopefully utilizing some of the abutments so that the town share will be lower. It's a closure. And so the cost of that new bridge is a lot more than what we initially anticipated. So quickly on the ABC program, so far since its development, we've got 110 projects. 39% of all projects have been in our program with a total cost of $215 million, and 95% of our bridges open on time except for one that in Plymouth last year. Just an idea so that, as you can see, we've got ABC projects all over the state. Every county is accounted for. So this coming summer, we'll have 3 closures, one in Clarendon, which is the covered bridge, Berrytown, which is at the intersection of 110 and 302 where the roundabout is. That bridge on 110 will be closed for 60 days, I believe it is. And then Pulteney, which is already closed. So Braintree is one of the projects we built this last summer. It was an ABC project, 28-day closure. And we met that. The existing bridge was T-beams. You can see that it was really bad. And they replaced it with a slab. And actually part of that bridge is a arch. When they widened that bridge, and we kept that, and we just replaced the.
You do a covered
T-beam
bridge,
section.
they put new material, or they have to match with the old?
It all depends on what the situation is with the covered bridge.
Okay.
So it typically we have to put in new timber. It's new timber, and we match the size
Right,
maybe.
right, okay.
We don't have to match the material necessarily.
Some have floors that are wood, right? Yeah.
Yep, they're all, yep. And usually some of the floor systems end up being new. We've put in like blue lamb timber.
Okay.
And then there's some covered bridges that they look like covered bridges. They look beautiful, but underneath there's beams because we
Okay.
just couldn't support the bridge.
Huh.
So some before and after, in Cambridge, this is the Gates covered bridge. It's a bridge on private property, but we're responsible for the maintenance of that.
Wrong-way bridge.
By Wrong-Way Bridge, yep. So we fixed the abutment. In Leicester, we had an existing arch bridge that we replaced with a brand new bridge. In Chester, there was a deck rehabilitation project on 103. This is the new bridge, and that was the temporary bridge that they hadn't taken out yet.
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, it's a temporary bridge. So this was a highlight for the village of Ludlow, 103. This was the existing bridge. And we replaced this with a new bridge, a little bit wider. It's just a little bit wider, but this bridge was just all steel plates. The deck was beyond any repair. And it was a closure that went really well. I think it was like a 3-week closure. We had some bridges on 14 and Callis replaced. A culvert on I-89. This was the Sharon project. As you can see, it was several spans long, and this was the existing structural steel and deck, and we painted all that steel. It almost looks practically brand new, but it does not have a new deck. We just did some patching and repairs to the deck. So this one is a new thing. This was an existing arch bridge that was very historic. We got permission to replace it pretty much in kind with a precast. And this is the new one, and this is a little video.
New thing.
New thing. But you can't hear it because
There's narration if you want.
So many towns were on. Wow. Look at that.
Is there much to hear?
no. But basically, just it was a drone footage, kind of just music. So you can kind of see.
What's the river?
This is the Rock River. So this is it when we had Tropical Storm Irene. This whole area got damaged really, really badly. But you can see this.
It's still pretty narrow bridge.
No, actually, so this bridge was very narrow, and we actually widened it to the full out to out is about 28 feet, which is good for the traffic. This community they didn't want us to widen it, and we were like, we're not going to build a brand new precast arch bridge.
What was their reason for not widening it?
They like it reduces the speed,
okay.
things like that, kind of a mechanism to slow traffic down. But we were told them that we were not going to build a brand new precast or cast in place arch bridge at that width, that we would do what is required by
Right.
state
Good.
design standards, etc. And what they did is they asked us to, they asked us to stripe it so it would be like a single lane, but it's really not. So you can see right here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's acting like a single lane bridge, but it's a 2-lane bridge.
And Nutrien is on Route 30 or?
Yes, this road is an FAS route off of Route 30 that goes to Dover and to Mount Snow. A lot of commuters use this. And again, this is similar from last year. What are our risks? It's the whole supply chain, inflation, the driver shortage for trucking, fabricators. We're trying to advertise our projects like a year earlier than we normally would so that we can have our structural steel be able to come on time. There's still the labor shortage. Contractors, we have issues because these projects that used to be that $6 million, $7 million range, a lot of our Vermont contractors could bid on those. But now those same projects are now between 10 and 20 million. And our contractors in Vermont just aren't capable, don't have the labor. So contractors from out of state are coming in, which is great, but we still don't have enough because there's so much work in New England that every state is in the same situation. And we had a meeting with my counterpart in New Hampshire, and they're seeing the same thing with the prices of their bridge projects, just everything going up, and the lack of competition. So with the big projects, we don't have a lot of competition, but just recently, that Killington project I mentioned, that one came under our estimate, and we had 6 bidders. So that's great. So those projects that are under 5 million, we're starting to see a little bit more competition. And I know Jesse had the same comment. So that's a good sign. But it's those large projects where we run into issues. So basically, that's my presentation.
Well, Carolyn, that was excellent.
Yeah.
You have a knowledge of every one of them. How do you keep it all up there?
So where did you go to school? UTC?
I went to the University of Vermont.
UVM?
I'm actually from Massachusetts and I went to UVM and I just stayed here in Vermont and I've been working for the agency now for, it'll be 38 years this summer.
Oh, good for you.
Wow.
We heard there was a employee that was over 60 years, so like, 38 seems like not that much.
Yeah, that's Marv
Yeah.
Kingsbury.
You're the new girl around here.
Yeah, I know, I'm the young one, I'm the new one. Yep, I went to school for engineering, and then I went on and I got an MBA from UVM as well, and my whole stay here at the Agency of Transportation has been in structures. So I did know Jean Capel.
You know it well. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you, and I appreciate it.
Okay.